Today we're going to learn about classification of numbers, but I want to kind of show you other ways that we classify things in life. And so one of the things I want to show you is where we live. You may or may not live in Hawkins. I live in Holly Lake Ranch, but our school is in Hawkins, so I'm going to uh, highlight Hawkins here. This is Hawkins, Texas. Um, and so Hawkins would be the city. Now, cities are also placed into counties, and the county that we're in is Wood County. So here's Wood County: Yantis, Quitman, Winsboro, Holly Lake Ranch, Haynesville, Mineola, Hawkins, Alba Golden. These are the cities that are in Wood County. So if we were to classify these and I asked you where you lived, you would tell me where you live. And so I live in Holly Lake Ranch. And Holly Lake Ranch is in Wood County. So if somebody lives in Wood County, does that mean they live in Holly Lake Ranch? Well, not necessarily, because they could live in Hawkins, they could live in Haynesville, all those cities we just talked about. But if you live in Holly Lake Ranch, you do live in Wood County. If you live in Hawkins, you do live in Wood County. But just because you live in Wood County does not mean that you live in those cities. Okay? And so now, Wood County is in Texas. Now, there are 254 counties in Texas. So just because you live in Texas does not mean that you live in Wood County. But if you live in Wood County, you do live in Texas. And then we can even go out further, and Texas is part of the United States. And there are 50 states in the United States. So just because you live in the United States does not mean you live in Texas. But if you live in Texas, you do live in the United States. So this is a classification system. We have city, county, state, and country. And so just because you are in the city does not mean you're in, just because you're in the United States does not mean that you're in Texas. But if you're in Texas, you are in the United States. And just because you're in Texas does not mean you're in Wood County. But if you're in Wood County, you are in Texas. And just because you are in Wood County does not mean you're in Hawkins. But Hawkins, if you live in Hawkins, then you are in Wood County. So I hope that makes sense as we go through and classify our numbers. So now let's look at this Venn diagram that I made. And here we have the United States of America. Here we have Texas. And here we have counties and cities. Okay, so first thing I want to do is show that our state of Texas is inside of the United States, which is our country. But the United States is not inside of Texas. And so now I'm going to take our county and the same thing. Our county is in the state of Texas, which means it's also in the United States of America. But the United States of America is not necessarily in our county, and it's not in Texas. And then we have our city. Our city is in our county, which is in Texas, which is in the United States. So now we're going to relate this to numbers, okay? So in the classification of numbers, first thing we have are counting numbers, and counting numbers are what you would use if you counted. If you played hide and seek, you wouldn't start with 0, and you wouldn't start with negative numbers. You would start with 1, 2, 3, 4, and those are called counting numbers. And so counting numbers are our first set. Whole numbers include counting numbers plus 0. So they would be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we would put counting numbers inside of whole numbers. Just because the counting numbers are whole numbers, it does not mean whole numbers are counting numbers, because 0 is not a counting number. Then our classification gets bigger with integers. Integers would be negative numbers plus whole numbers. So it would be negative 3, 2, negative 1, 0, plus 1, 2, 3, 4. And lastly, our biggest classification would be rational numbers. And rational numbers are fractions and decimal numbers, plus integers, plus whole numbers, plus counting numbers. So basically, they're all numbers that are on the number line.